Today is the eve of Epiphany. And the word Epiphany refers to a revealing of reality or a sudden insight into the essential meaning of something. And as Christians, we understand that these insights are in fact generated by the Holy Spirit of God at work within us. The Feast of Epiphany celebrates the revealing of Christ to the nations, to those non-Jews or unbelievers who are symbolized in the gospel we heard read today, symbolized by the wise men. Paul writes about the plan of the mystery of God's grace, which was hidden for ages, that the Christ should be revealed not just to the Jews, but to the Gentiles. And he says that that mystery was made known to him by revelation. It was, for Paul, an epiphany, a sudden insight. And from time to time, we need epiphanies, which along with the church and the scriptures and the healing work of God help us to become the people of Jesus. Matthew's gospel today tells us that the wise men were from the east. That means they were Gentiles. They were not Jews. They were not believers in the one true God, but they were seekers of truth. And they were led by the star and warned in a dream by the Holy Spirit. They were the first outsiders to have the mystery of Christ made known to them by revelation. In the year leading up to my Christianity, I too was from the East. I was in graduate school at the University of Massachusetts, trying to become a wise man. I was not a believer, but despite that, the Holy Spirit had intentions for me, as he does for all unbelievers. And he had mercy on me by giving me a crucial revelation, an epiphany, when I badly needed it. Here's the story of how that happened. In my studies, I had begun to concentrate on behavioralism, and that's in the works of B.F. Skinner. Skinner was a psychologist whose theory was that all behavior, everything that we do, is generated by earlier events and thus is inevitable. Whatever happens is what is already programmed to happen. In whatever we do or think or feel, we are simply responding as previous experience has conditioned us. There is no right or wrong behavior, there is only continuing behavior. From a behaviorist perspective, there is no plan to this. There is no planner. There is no mystery. There is stimulus and there is response. That's it. Now, if you take this seriously, which I did, and think it through, which I did, you come to the conclusion that there is no human freedom. That we humans are no different than the white rats used in the famous experiments which support this theory about humans and their behavior. All our thoughts about our decisions and choices are really just justifications for a predetermined reality of which we are unaware. behavioralism doesn't just say that some of our experiences are predetermined. It says everything is caused by what happened before, and there is no escaping this chain of events. It is actually a Western scientific version of karma. Well, I had traveled to the East to study psychology, but my real concern was my own existence. I was, at the time, about as lost in life as a human being can be and still function at a fairly high intellectual level. I somehow couldn't get my life to go right. I was painfully off. And I kept hoping that by reading and studying and thinking, the intellect would be my salvation. That I could figure out what was wrong with me and then fix it. And as I was trying to figure life out, I was blindsided by behavioralism, this devastating and depressing theory of existence, which led me to the conclusion that life was actually a mindless prison with no escape. For weeks, I struggled and thought and read and struggled with this view of life until one night, alone in my basement study, miserable with my existence as a two-legged rat, I looked up at this pitiful single light bulb hanging from a cord. And I said to myself, I don't care if this is predetermined or not. I don't have to believe this. I'm not going to believe this. And when I said that, I instantly realized that it was a lie and that I was free. That I had just made an absolutely free choice. I couldn't rationally support the realization that I was free, but I knew it was true. It had been made known to me by revelation. And a great weight immediately came off of me. Relief just flooded down on me. Remember now, I was not a Christian, not even considering Christianity. But I am very sure that what happened in that basement that night was my first experience of the saving grace of the Holy Spirit of God. I had received an epiphany. I was shown that I was free. Now, it's a wonderful thing to discover the gift of freedom, but to discover it in the decade of the 60s, that became a very tricky proposition. What was he thinking? I mean, the Holy Spirit. What was he thinking? How was I to respond to such a revelation in the 60s? Well, we all know how people responded. So my life didn't immediately start to get better. My life actually got worse. And I will spare you the very interesting details of those adventures and misadventures of freedom. And I will fast forward a miserable year and a half ahead to the point where in the fullness of time, I discovered that there was someone who had actually gotten life right, who had mastery over life. that I could actually choose to serve him as my master, giving over my newfound freedom into his care. This is called giving your life to Jesus, and I highly recommend it. My lostness was overwhelmed by his goodness. I was a stranger, and he took me in. And it was not just me and Jesus. There was a whole community of people. They received me into their midst, just as I was. And I learned from them how to worship and adore the Lord, and we learned together how to appreciate and to love, and at times to put up with each other, as the Lord on many occasions puts up with us. And I learned how to attend to the mystery of abundant life that the Holy Spirit was unfolding. So if in this new year you are concerned for people that you love and who seem to be lost, remember these stories. We do not live as those who have no hope. The Feast of the Epiphany declares that Jesus is manifested to unbelievers. The Holy Spirit bloweth where it listeth, and is at work even now in the lives of those for whom you're praying. Today we celebrate the eve of the Feast of the Epiphany of Jesus by remembering the journey of the Magi and the gifts they brought: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And I have remembered with you today an epiphany in a dark and dreary basement, and then the wonder of coming to the Lord and being taken in by his people and worshiping in his church and discovering the traditions and the scriptures and the liturgy and the theology and the immeasurable grace of the Holy Communion. All these gifts, not from me to him, but from him to me, from him to us. For we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. The mystery has been revealed to us. We are the ones who fall down and worship him. And we've come together today to give thanks to the Father and to the Son, and especially to the Holy Spirit, who has gathered us from the nations to share in and to share out the unsearchable riches of Christ. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Amen.